Welcome to another infographic instant with Brian Michael. In this episode, we're going to be looking at how Hong Kong's corporations rank in terms of corporate governance. Before we talk about the infographic, let's look a little bit at the paper from which this infographic comes. That paper tries to assess the extent to which Hong Kong can engage in corporate governance reforms in order to attract more investment into what is one of the world's preeminent international financial centers. And what we find is that the main problem in Hong Kong is that of holdup. And holdup basically means that if there is excess consolidation in power, in the management, and in terms of the way Hong Kong companies are run, that discourages foreign investors from putting their money in. Namely, they're afraid that because they have so little control and so few rights over the way cash is managed in these companies, then they simply see into that future and therefore do not put their money in the company in the present. Let's turn our attention now to the infographic you see in front of you. We provide two measurements of the quality of corporate governance in a number of international financial centers. And we look at two main measures, the World Competitiveness Report and the Governance Metrics International indicators. Let's focus our attention for the moment on the World Competitiveness Report. The report, and namely what we show here, consolidates 5 indicators from that report. We look at auditing and reporting, we look at minority shareholder control, we look at board efficacy, we look at investor protection, and we look at general ethics. And these are indicators that are reported from a survey. So how business executives fill in a survey may not be indicative of the actual quality of these boards. However, if we accept these data as true, we see that Hong Kong and Singapore rank some of the highest ratings from all the international financial centers companies. Singapore and Hong Kong being at the head of the list, and China and Seoul being toward the end of the list, where we use, in some cases, national indicators in order to proxy international financial centers. So, for example, we talk about Frankfurt and Zurich, even though we might have data only for Germany. Now, the other point to notice is that there might be differences in the way that these two indicators view corporate governance. We see, for example, that London and New York, there is a fair amount of convergence in the view of corporate governance. Corporate governance seems relatively high in London and New York. However, the difference between the two measurements is very extreme in the case of Hong Kong and Singapore, where we see up to a 4-point difference in the scoring of corporate governance. Therefore, what these data, I think, tell us, more importantly than the particular rankings of these international financial centers, is that there is a large variability in our understanding about corporate governance in these international financial centers. Because of the alignment of these scores in places like London and New York, to a lesser extent Frankfurt and Zurich, we can be relatively certain that corporate governance in these jurisdictions is what these measurements are telling us. However, the differences in places such as Hong Kong and Singapore are so large that we cannot know really what corporate governance is about. Therefore, I think the main message of this infographic is that it's our understanding of corporate governance which needs to be improved far more than corporate governance practices in general in order to make any kind of policy recommendations for the future. This has been another infographic instant with Brian Michael.